you here?
Well, no, not exactly, John, but I rather think I can guess, and the answer's no.
Oh. Oh, well. At least sit a moment.
Well, it can't be a long siege. I've got a lot of calls to make.
Well, sit down all the same. You must have realised that we now have a vacancy on the controlling committee.
Hadn't occurred to me.
In the area of public health.
All I can do is to wish you well.
Oh. Well, I rather hoped you'd do a little more than that.
All right. All right, I wish you very well.
Would you consider rejoining us?
No.
Have you thought about it?
Yeah. Of course I have. Now, listen, John, regardless of what I want, and don't get me wrong, I do not want that responsibility again, do you think the Germans would be interested in me for one moment? Of course they wouldn't.
I'm not convinced of that.
Well, I am, and just to leave you in no doubt at all, I am not interested.
Oh, that sounds decisive.
It is decisive. Final, absolute, and emphatic.
If somewhat overwrought.
That's how I feel.
Apart from which, you mean it.
Apart from which, as you say, yes, I mean it.
Penny for them.
Huh?
Your thoughts.
Oh, sorry, yes, I'm miles away.
Yes, I know. You're unusually quiet tonight.
Am I?
Sitting there without a word for the last 20 minutes.
Yes, Ambrose said I talk too much.
Oh, dear.
Or rather, when I do talk, I use too many words. Overwrought statements, I think he said.
Well, it would be hard to contradict him.
I hope you don't mean that. I felt rejected enough since I came back without you starting.
Look, I'm sure John Ambrose is joking, Philip. Well, I certainly am. You must know that.
Not sure what I know any longer.
Claire isn't rejecting you, if that's what you mean.
No.
Of course she isn't.
You could have fooled me.
No, she is not rejecting you. She's trying to forget something, run away, hide. Not from you, but perhaps from something that you were unfortunately involved in. Something that she feels terribly guilty about, and whenever she thinks about you...
Yes, I am perfectly aware of the mechanics of the thing. I just do not like being told by an old nun that I cannot see my own daughter because she has no wish to see me.
I'm sure it wasn't exactly like that.
Yes, it was. It was exactly like that.
Well, let's not talk about it.
You started it.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yes, yes. Very well. Hellman, I just had the supply officer on the telephone.
Sir?
Apparently the damn fool who runs the market garden has lost all his fuel oil. Why the devil they had to tell me about it? Go and see him, Hellman. His gravity water tanks will run dry in 2 days.
I'm sorry, Herr General. I don't quite understand.
Neither do I, man. Find out what's going on and do something about it.
Herr General.
If the market garden can't continue to supply us, Oberleutnant, we'll have to find an alternative source. And that will not make us very popular with Meyer Friedel.
Surgery over.
Yeah.
Many calls?
Half a dozen.
What did John want yesterday? Or shouldn't I ask?
Ambrose?
You never told me.
What we expected.
You're going to rejoin them?
Well, of course I'm not. You know I'm not.
I think you're just being stubborn.
I'm not being stubborn. I just want to have nothing at all to do with the controlling committee. I have done my share. It's now up to somebody else.
Who?
I don't know. Why all this interest, anyway? Why this pressure? Yes, I seem to remember you were the one who was constantly complaining about Ambrose and Friedel and Richter and the rest of them every time I was called out, on the hour, every hour, night and day. Why on earth should I want to go back to all that again?
Because you're good at it.
Good at what?
Because you're...
Shouting down a lot of bureaucrats.
Good at doing for other people what they can't do for themselves.
They can learn.
Oh, you know that isn't true. A lot of people need help. They don't know how to fight or even what to fight sometimes. They need someone to fight for them. Of course you must rejoin, Philip. It's what they need.
What about my needs, just for once?
It's what you need, too.
Look, all I need is to be left alone to get on with my excuse for medicine. That is how I can be the most use to everybody.
Your work on the committee was medical work.
My work on the committee was shouting.
You're still shouting. So you might just as well go back to it.
But, Mr. Ambrose, the vacancy on the committee is in the area of public health.
I am well aware of that, Colonel.
Have any of these people a medical qualification?
James Cosgrove worked in the health department offices at one time, some years ago.
Another bureaucrat, you mean?
Yeah, well, that is something we should avoid if we can. You see, Foster Smythe's work for the controlling committee was marred, to some extent at least, by his lack of practical experience.
I'm afraid I've been unable to interest any of the doctors. They all complain of overwork, as it is.
That surprises me. General health on the island is good, according to my reports.
But there are dietary problems, which, for the elderly
Have
particularly...
certain adjustments to make, Mr. Ambrose.
Couldn't you find a chemist?
I've asked every chemist, every retired chemist, every dentist, every doctor I can think of. I've even asked a vet. Unhappily enough, one of them feels able or willing to undertake this work.
Thank you, Mr. Ambrose. I will have to talk to General Miller, of course, but at the moment I'm afraid there's no one on this list who is acceptable to us.
Now, not too many questions, Lieutenant. My husband's not been very well recently. George, this is Lieutenant Hellman. He's come to see you about the diesel.
Mr. Trenet, have you any idea who did this?
None at all. Could have been anyone. We're not particularly popular.
Why is that, sir?
Jealousy.
Our neighbours resent what we do here.
You grow food. What is there to resent?
We grow it for you.
Exclusively.
But if you didn't, then we would have to take at least something of what they grow.
We provide you with food. We also make a profit. That's what they don't like.
The islanders think that you should get your supplies from elsewhere, from France maybe, but not from here.
And this is a cause for resentment, that you supply men with food?
Lieutenant, it's perfectly simple to understand. You provide me with fertilizer, which other people find it difficult to obtain. You also let me have diesel fuel to pump water into my gravity tanks. They can't find that easily either.
I shall have to question your workers.
Oh, it's much more likely to have been another grower who did this, not one of our own workers.
Oh, we cannot tolerate sabotage, Mrs. Trenet, whoever does it for whatever reason.
Yes, well, let's not have a debate about that now. All I want from you is the promise of more fuel, pure and simple.
When did you receive your last allocation?
Is that important?
George, please. I can answer all these kind of questions later, Lieutenant. My husband's immediate concern is the question of fuel.
I understand, of course. I can also assure you that this action will not go unpunished.
Look, it's not a question of punishment, man. It's a question of fuel. Now, if I don't get it, you won't get your supplies. I cannot do nature's work without a little bit of technical help, not on the scale of your demands.
I am not a farmer, Mr. Trenny.
Neither am I. I'm a market gardener.
George, your supply officer did promise that something would be done immediately.
How much fuel was lost?
Oh, well, the tank was 3/4 full. There was enough for a month.
The position with regard to fuel...
Look, never mind the jargon.
I have to ask when you were last supplied.
3 days ago.
And now it's all gone. Vanished. Disappeared into the ground. And unless I get some more, you will not get your...
aware of the position. However, you must answer my questions if I'm to make a satisfactory report.
God in heaven.
What were your security arrangements?
Oh, security has not proved necessary in the past.
On the contrary, Mrs. Trenny, I would suggest that security was very necessary in the past.
Lieutenant, I am perfectly well aware that you need to have everything written down and neatly filed away. I am well aware of the advantages of having an efficient system. They have been explained to me time and time again and at considerable length. But, and please write this down so that your Major General Muller fully appreciates the
Herr General has given me the responsibility of dealing with this matter. I shall, of course, keep him as informed as is necessary.
Then please inform him that unless I get fuel for my pumps, there will be no watering, except what we can manage by hand. And I can tell you now that however many men you may draft to assist me, it will not be possible for me to provide you with 1/4 of the vegetables that you require. Not possible, Oberleutnant. Impossible, totally.
We did try to make this clear on the telephone.
If the local people are short of fuel, why didn't they steal the diesel rather than waste it?
Look, it's not a question of stealing fuel. It's a question of...
It would not have been easy to steal, Lieutenant. Filling cans being seen all over the place, far too dangerous and obvious. But it was relatively simple, just to turn on the valve as you saw.
Man would only have to wait for the right moment.
Which would have been when?
Oh, early evening, when everybody had gone home for the day.
You suspect then the valve was opened early last evening?
Yes.
I must make a report of all the facts.
Or as many as we can invent.
My husband's illness makes him tired and irritable. You must forgive him.
We do not know when exactly it happened. In fact, we do not know how exactly it happened. In fact, we do not know who did it. In fact, it's all guesswork. Now, write what you want in your report, Lieutenant, but what I must have from you today is a promise of more diesel fuel.
The fuel, if turned on last evening, could have run out unnoticed during the night.
Not could have, Lieutenant. Did.
Apart from anything
Don't
else...
start again, Philip. You said quite enough about that this morning.
Apart from anything else, it is a blessed relief to come home after a few hours being out visiting the poor and needy of this parish, etc., etc., to know that the rest of the evening is my own, which I can spend quietly with my wife, enjoying the fruits of our labours, such as they may be.
There was a call.
What? Oh, no, now, wait a minute. I told him no, Oliver, and I meant no, so I hope he didn't raise his hopes, because I shall dash them.
It was not John Ambrose.
Oh.
Mrs. Trenay.
Trenny, do I know her?
Yes. George Trenay's wife.
Not that market gardener, that damn profiteer. He's not my patient.
He is.
Since when?
When you were in France.
But his place is miles away.
Yes, they had some difficulty getting a doctor.
So I get stuck with him because nobody else will have him?
I don't think he likes the Germans any more than we do. But if he was ordered to grow food for them, what else could he do?
George Trenny would grow food for anybody if the price was right.
I don't think that's quite fair, Philip.
What, fair or not? It's true, isn't it? He's notorious for it.
But he's in business. And it can't be easy these days. There certainly aren't any quick returns to market gardening.
Well, he always managed to find a few, judging by all accounts.
Oh, well, I don't know.
I should think you could count his friends on the finger of one finger, to coin a phrase. Nobody likes competition, especially the sort he provides, anyway.
If you've quite finished, I was going to tell you that she wondered if you'd call in sometime.
Well, why can't she come here?
She didn't explain.
So I'm supposed to use my precious petrol going all the way out there
Look, I
just to
said
see
that I would tell you that I was sure you would do what you could when you can.
To conserve stocks of diesel fuel needed for pumping water for essential horticultural and agricultural purposes, in this area, the domestic water supply is to be withdrawn with immediate effect. The population is advised, however, that water will be available at certain hours from standpipes sited at principal road junctions. Thank you, Gefreiter. See that the order is printed and distributed throughout the parish in which the market garden is situated, and to all civilian residences and establishments within a square mile of the area.
Yes, Honourable Lieutenant.
And inform the water authority.
Of course.
You might also point out to the water people that the supply to the Trenny market garden is not to be interrupted in any circumstances.
You'll have to advise me, Dieter. I know none of these people. And it really is your province, not mine.
In fact, sir, it is Major Friedland's.
Yes, of course.
He is the one that has to work with the civilian population.
Nevertheless, I would be glad of your approval. And of your recommendation for the final decision.
The problem, sir, with that list is that not one name on it is acceptable to either of us.
Why not?
Because the vacancy is in the area of public health.
And none of these men is medically qualified?
Oh, not one, sir.
Is that essential?
I have come to that conclusion, yes, sir.
You mean you would prefer it to be so?
Most certainly.
Foster Smythe was not medically qualified, surely?
No, but he had vague leanings in that direction. Foster Smythe was a stopgap appointment, sir, and as such, not really satisfactory. He had a rigid, bureaucratic manner. Made him difficult to deal with.
And we already have enough blind bureaucrats.
Is that a question or a statement, sir? Thank you.
So, what do you propose? Leave the vacancy open?
Well, that is one possibility, of course, although I have asked the secretary of the controlling committee...
John Ambrose?
Yes, sir. I have asked him to try and find a more suitable name. There is, of course, one man who qualifies. Dr. Philip Martel.
Martel?
Foster Smythe's predecessor, sir.
I've not forgotten, Richter. I'm surprised you should put his name forward under the circumstances.
But he was committed on technicalities.
Yes, I remember very clearly. And you still have a high regard for him, I gather.
Well, in my view, he is the right man for the job. He has an energy that the islanders need.
Even though it gets in your way from time to time.
It is very easy for us, being the occupying power, to neglect our basic duties. Oh, not out of malice, of course, or any evil intention, simply ignorance. Lack of information.
And mindful, as you are, of Berlin's wish that we should make a good impression here.
Oh, mindful of that, of course, sir, but also simple humanitarian principles.
So you're asking me if I would have any objection to the reappointment of Martel?
Well, I would be glad to know that you did not disapprove. Unfortunately, knowing the man as I do, I suspect he will refuse.
On the grounds that we did him an injustice?
Oh, no. I think he recognized my position at the time. I had no alternative. It's simply that he's an impatient man, or was.
Then why?
He always appeared to enjoy his battle against regulations and orders, but he seems now to have been subdued by prison life. He may have lost his relish for a fight.
I doubt that, Dieter. Anyway, if you want to ask him, ask him.
And if he agreed, you would have no objection?
If he's the right man for you and Friedel, how could I possibly object?
Good morning, Ernst.
A letter has been intercepted today.
You know the Herr General actually approves of Martel. What letter?
Addressed to the International Red Cross in Geneva.
Oh, yes. What is it this time? More food parcels?
Complaining about an interruption to domestic water supplies.
I wasn't aware there'd been one.
There shouldn't have been. No such interruption has been ordered from this office. However, on inquiry, I find that an Oberleutnant on General Muller's staff did issue such an order, following the sabotaging of a fuel tank at the market garden that supplies Mount Duran.
Oh, dear.
He is being kind enough to send me a copy of the order for information.
I see.
I trust you do.
But sit down, Ernst.
Everything to do with our control
This
and...
Oberleutnant, presumably a young man?
His age is of no interest to me.
And as such, inexperienced?
He has made that very evident.
And being on Miller's staff, he's only too anxious to prove himself to be a force in the hierarchy.
Everything to do with our control and jurisdiction over the population on this island is my direct responsibility.
But have you not been consulted?
No, I was not at all.
Come in.
This looks like it.
All right, thank you.
The population is advised, however, that water will be available at certain hours from standpipes sited at principal road junctions.
Does he explain the reasons for the order?
Not in any detail. But it seems that the Herr General's exclusive need for fresh vegetables is enough to justify whatever reprisal this young man thinks fit to impose.
If it is, in fact, a reprisal.
Well, it would certainly appear to be.
Well, is there a shortage of water in the area?
It has to be pumped up from fairly deep sources.
Ah, by diesel pumps. So presumably there's a need to conserve water because there's a need to conserve diesel fuel.
I'm well aware of the reasoning. I'm not satisfied with the way in which the matter has been handled. We have an organized and efficient system carefully designed to keep civil government under proper control.
Well, I should imagine, Ernst, that the Oberleutnant is guilty not of questioning your system, but, like some others we could name, of being perhaps overzealous.
If personnel ignore procedures, the system will fail.
When was this previously diagnosed?
About 5 or 6 years ago, Doctor.
I just need a few pills, that's all. Angina isn't serious.
If it is angina.
Look, I know what it is, Martel. I've had it before.
Well, there was very little need to send for me then, was there?
Please excuse my husband, Doctor. He has been rather irritable lately.
Yes, it may or may not be angina. It may or may not be serious. I shall need to see you again. Hear what your reaction has been to these pills I'm prescribing. If they're available.
Available?
They may not be. Those of us who aren't in the good books of the authorities do have to put...
I resent that remark, Martel.
We were told to do the work we do, not asked.
Yes, I was about to say that those of us who can't expect any favours from the authorities, and that includes most of us, do have to put up with a certain amount of shortages, and that includes medical supplies.
Well, there must be alternatives. If not one pill, then another.
Yes, we can but hope the chemist will have it.
But surely,
we may be lucky. Our need for heart medicines has declined remarkably over the last couple of years, largely because people have been living less well. They haven't therefore found themselves in your husband's state.
My health has got nothing to do with the way that we live.
As I told you, he was ill 5 years ago, before the war. Of course, the market garden wasn't so successful.
Yes, many people were ill in the same way 5 years ago, even 3, but now they've lost weight. They don't eat and drink so much, and they're better off for it.
I don't see why I should starve myself to death when I can afford to eat decently.
I'm not suggesting you should, just that a slightly more reasonable diet and a good deal of rest might be what you need.
Rest? You can't rest with a place like this to run.
And you have staff, don't you?
Oh, yes, the Germans send some local people in.
Yes, they send in a great deal of paperwork as well.
Surprised me. Well, it's up to you, Mr. Tenney. Try to take it easy if you can. Get rid of some of that weight. A short walk now and again might help.
Walk?
Yes, there's too much strain on your heart, you see. You're carrying around too much weight. Just a couple of turns round the garden. I'll come and see you again in a couple of days. Let me know if you have any difficulty getting that stuff.
You see, Doctor, my husband hates walking.
You may hate dying even more.
Yes, apparently some unknown person, presumably from the neighborhood, deliberately sabotaged the fuel supplies to the market garden because the man who owns the place grows produce exclusively for Mount Durand.
So it was a reprisal, not a necessary economy.
As I understand it,
Although, of course, diesel fuel is difficult to obtain.
the order should not have been issued in this manner.
Well, not without prior consultation with the Feldkommander, too.
Precisely.
In that case, Ernst, we must ask the Oberleutnant for an official apology, if only to show our hand.
I think we should do more than that, Dieter. I believe we should demand that the order be rescinded.
Oh, I very much doubt if we can even ask for a reversal, let alone demand one. After all, the order was issued from Müller's office. Whatever the circumstances, he's bound to support his Oberleutnant's action.
As I am bound to expect support from you.
You make this very difficult for me, Ernst. You insist upon this?
I am asking that we should at all times insist on the correct, proper courses of action.
Yes, I'm sure we can make our point without actually insisting. Which is the first time it's happened, in quite this way.
By making the position clear now, we would ensure it couldn't happen again.
Yes, well, I'm more concerned with the implications in this intercepted letter from the Red Cross.
Well, it doesn't threaten our administration as this order does.
Oh, I disagree.
Well, the letter was intercepted. Its contents are not therefore known to Geneva.
But that doesn't actually minimize the validity of the complaints.
Oh, complaints are a natural consequence of occupation. I imagine we'd feel equally affronted and aggrieved if some enemy power took over our homes and land.
Which is what lies behind this action against the market gardener. And what motivated the Oberleutnant, understandably.
But incorrectly.
Oh, we are dealing with human beings, Ernst. You know that as well as I do. Why make such an issue out of one clumsy blunder?
Because I have an increasing sense of our authority being undermined ever since General Müller arrived.
But there's no evidence of that, surely. He's an able soldier. Like yourself, he's a professional military man. He knows what his role is.
He doesn't have the welfare of a troubled civilian population on his hands, nor in the event of anything going wrong would he be held responsible. He can and does quite ruthlessly step in without thought.
Yes, well, let's leave the matter, shall we, Ernst?
As you wish.
Oh, by the way, Müller approves of Martel.
So you said.
Is George Trenet really ill?
Oh, possibly.
Ironic, isn't it?
What?
That someone who has practically everything he wants.
Oh,
should
yeah, I
become
know.
ill
I
when
said
we-
the same thing to him myself. It's a fact of life, though people hate you for saying it, but our general standard of health stands a far better chance of being maintained with all this boring old roughage than it ever did when we had all the luxuries imaginable.
Thick cream,
Decent brandy,
pork,
butter.
camembert.
Oh, you're making me feel as though I'm missing something.
You are.
Well, I'm still better off physically without it.
Mentally?
Oh, well, that's not an area I know much about.
True.
No, I suppose it's true to say that you do have to feel better mentally in order to feel better off physically.
Still, a little of what you fancy.
Yeah. Fact remains, though, that old Trenet's been living far too well. Probably still is. At least the Germans did that for us.
What?
What denied us the disadvantages of the good life?
Well, I shan't be all that unhappy to see them come back.
If they ever do.
Well, of course they will, one day.
Hope you're right. I'll tell you one thing. This stuff is a damn sight better than stale black bread and water twice a day.
As long as you think of something delicious while you're eating it.
Stilton.
Port.
Mr. Ambrose, this order has been made. It is now in force. Moreover, the situation has been aggravated by an attempt to inform the Red Cross of the matter and so turn the whole thing into an incident, out of all proportion to the facts.
The committee does not share that opinion.
Then, with all due respect, the committee is misguided.
Colonel, we don't think you realize the seriousness of this order.
Mr. Ambrose, I assure you I do.
There are, I believe, certain medical implications.
Oh?
In our opinion.
And what are these certain medical implications?
We haven't had the opportunity to discuss them.
Or do you intend to discuss them when you next meet?
Unless before then that order is withdrawn.
You will be faced with something of a problem, will you not? You have no one to advise you on these certain medical implications, no professional medical opinion to call upon.
No, because you refused to accept any of the names on the proposed list.
Because none of them were satisfactory, Mr. Ambrose, which is why I've asked you to come here again.
Well, I intended to come in any event in view of this development.
Yes, you see, this order has created a peculiarly intractable problem.
Oh, yes, since it came from General Muller's headquarters, presumably.
Civilian matters, Mr. Ambrose, under normal circumstances, come under the direct control of this office. In particular, as you well know, they are in the hands of Major Friedel. However, as you point out, this ban was issued from Mount Durant and was, to some extent, justified.
Now, just a moment,
I am therefore certain that General Muller would not be prepared to reverse the order unless there was some genuine medical argument in favour of doing so.
Oh, I see. So the playing of your internal political games comes before the welfare of the civilian population.
There are two courses open to us. Either I approach the Herr General in person.
Only to be refused.
Which would end the matter once and for all.
Or?
We lay the problem at the door of Dr. Martel. Well, I am only too willing to work with him again. And I know that his name is acceptable to the German military staff, both here and at Mount Durant.
Oh, you surprised me.
Well, then?
Well, I have to tell you that a few days ago I did broach the subject to him, not knowing what your reaction would be, but to sound out his own.
And
his response was emphatically negative.
Not unexpectedly.
Which rather exhausts your two courses.
There is a third.
Oh?
Try him again.
No, he won't be persuaded.
Don't invite him to rejoin the committee. Don't even mention the committee. Simply let him know, indirectly if you wish, of the existence of that order.
Colonel Richter, I'd always looked upon you as a straightforward man.
First and foremost, Mr. Ambrose, I'm a pragmatist. Your doctor, on the other hand, is very straightforward and very predictable.
And what do you predict his reaction will be?
I think he may well explode.
To your advantage?
Oh, I would have said in the end, to the advantage of the islanders.
John, and come. And I really couldn't tell you where he is.
Or how long you'll be.
No. Though I'm hoping not too long. I have a delicious dinner waiting for him.
A what?
Well, it's a joke, really. We were talking about all the things that we were missing last night. Still, it makes a good dream.
Mm-hmm.
Will you wait?
Well, if you don't mind, for a few minutes anyway.
Ah, sit down, I do.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, tell me, how's your daughter? Is she getting on all right?
Claire? Well, the nuns are doing what they can for her. Not that there's very much so. No, I think it's time more than anything else, but they're being very kind.
What does Philip think of her?
Well, he doesn't, I'm afraid. She won't see him.
Oh, do forgive me. I'd no idea it was like that.
Why should you have? But it hasn't helped him to get back on his feet again.
She blames him in some way, does she?
John, I don't know what she does. I really don't. Nobody understands what's going on in that poor old head of hers, least of all herself. But I'm convinced that when she says no to seeing her father, she really wants to say yes. It's just time. Anyway, you've come to ask Philip to rejoin the committee, have you?
He told you, did he?
Yes, he told me, all right. He also told me his answer. I wish he would, though.
Well, yes. As a matter of fact, although he doesn't know it, there are quite a number of people who wish he would.
Well, perhaps it would help him if you told him so.
No, I think not. Anyway, I'm not here on that business. No, at least... No, it's a different matter.
I think he used to... I was going to say enjoy, but that's the wrong word, because there's nothing to enjoy about all this, is there? I think he did get something out of tussling and winning.
Not always winning.
Well, tussling and trying. I hated it at the time, but there's no doubt he was a livelier, more enthusiastic and more energetic man when he was on the committee.
Yes, well, prison may have done that to him.
Partly that, partly Claire. He's frustrated. He's a fighter, and without a fight, he'll get worse.
Oh, no. Now, surely not.
Well, I'm exaggerating, I suppose, but he is changed. And battling with pedants and bureaucrats.
Particularly German pedants and bureaucrats.
Well, it certainly kept him going.
Curiously enough, I rather think they enjoyed battling with him.
Really? We're in here, Philip.
The answer's still no, if that's what you've come about.
No, it isn't, as a matter of fact.
Ah. Well, in that case, you can sit down. Here, you're not ill, are you, John?
No, it's something else. It's really your advice I'm after.
What the devil is this?
I am aware of your desire to impress, Oberleutnant. The fact is that you have allowed yourself to overlook official procedure.
Quite inadvertently, Herr General.
That is no excuse.
Diesel fuel being short,
You will be given an opportunity to speak, Hellman, when I have finished. Civil administration is controlled, as you very well know, by the Feldkommandantur. The Wehrmacht is concerned only with the military security of these islands. The life, property, and welfare of the people are matters for Major Friedel.
With respect, Herr General.
The Feldkommandantur must at all times be, and be seen to be, the dominant factor in the government of the island, Oberleutnant, not the military command. And even had it been the other way round, you should have cooperated with Oberst Richter. As it is, you consulted no one. You told no one of your decision or of the action that you had elected to take. Neither Major Friedel nor Oberst Richter.
A copy of the order has been sent to Major Friedel, sir.
A copy of an order you had no right to make.
Herr General.
Under the unusual circumstances and because of our particular need to maintain the Trenes establishment without drawing undue attention to the situation, I shall take no further action against you. But understand this. You are at all times to act strictly within the principles laid down. There can be no contingencies whatever when any deviation can be tolerated. Well?
I was instructed, Herr General, to look into a matter which appeared on investigation to be a case of sabotage.
You were simply instructed, Oberleutnant, to take whatever steps were necessary to ensure that the market garden could continue to supply us as we need it to.
It nevertheless seemed too unimportant to involve Major Friedel's office. He already has a considerable weight of administration.
That is not for you to say, Oberleutnant. And those are not the kind of decisions that you are expected to take.
Am I to withdraw the order, Herr General?
No, of course you can't withdraw the damn thing. It came from this office man. Since you made it, it must stand. I shall not support you again, however. There must be no repeat of this in any shape or form. There are procedures. Follow them.
Herr General.
I understand your concern, Dr. Martel. However, since you are not in a position to voice your opinions...
What the hell do you think I'm doing now?
Since you are not in a position to voice your opinions officially, I suggest you approach the Controlling Committee and see if they will express them for you.
Damn the Controlling Committee. What can they do about it? If you won't listen to me, why should you listen to them?
Because they are the recognized body...
Recognized body?
Since you are no longer a member of that committee, Doctor, all I can suggest is that you had better leave the issue to those of us who are handling it.
But which issue are you talking about? Are you talking about the general question of domestic water or the particular question of the risks to public health that this order of yours has raised?
Dr. Martel, I have already told you, I cannot listen to your complaints unless they are officially presented through the proper machinery established for the purpose. I suggest, therefore, that you...
Oh, George. Leave that. No, the doctor told you to rest.
I can't leave it.
Oh, please. For my sake.
Well, tell me how. I mean, just look at it. Orders, requisitions, statistics, details about manpower, hours worked, tonnages of this and that. If this war's to be won by the weight of the paperwork involved, the crowd will have a walkover.
Here. Drink that. It'll do you good. There's a drop of brandy in it, too. They'll win, all right. Of course they'll win.
I'm beginning to think you better be right. Otherwise...
Otherwise what, dear?
Otherwise our lives here won't be worth living.
George, you're taking this oil business too much to...
Too much to heart?
Oh, George, what's the matter with you? I mean, we'll be all right. We always have been, whatever happens.
You saw Martel's attitude. He came here out of professional duty, not because he wanted to. We are resented because we're realistic enough to continue with business as usual. It doesn't matter that because of our efficiency there's more food to go around for everyone. If our side wins, they'll turn on us.
Who's it from?
Richter.
Richter?
Yeah.
Oh, what's he doing writing to you?
Oh, he says that Friedel has told him of my visit, but there is nothing he can add to what I was told then. Although he understands the nature of my criticisms. I have to inform you that I cannot act on any complaint, whatever its nature, unless it is made through the proper channels. You know what it is, don't you? It's a trap. They're laying a trap for me.
I don't understand, Philip. What kind of trap?
They're trying to force me back onto that blasted committee. Well, they know what they can do. I'm going to go and see John Ambrose. I'm therefore asking you to raise the matter with Friedel through the committee formally.
Philip, we've already discussed it at great length.
Discuss it again.
To what end?
I'm beginning to know what it feels like to be an ordinary citizen.
Meaning?
I'm making a complaint, John. I'm making it to you because you happen to be the secretary of the controlling committee. Now, I am an ordinary citizen who has to turn somewhere, who wants to turn to somebody to seek advice, to seek the protection of my goods, my welfare, and my life that the occupation forces have undertaken to protect.
The Germans had no alternative but to act as they did.
I give up. So I have no protection, then. They can go on acting against my interests, and you're prepared to do nothing but sit there and let them get on with it.
Well, I can't see how they're acting against you.
I am simply putting myself in the position of those poor devils out there who don't have any water.
Oh, now, Philip, let's be fair. Water is available at certain hours.
I'm sorry, I won't waste your time any longer. Besides which, I do have a few patients to see.
My position is simply this. The order came from General Muller's office. He is unlikely to reverse it at my request.
Have you asked the man?
I thought I explained all this in my letter to you.
Have you been up to Mount Durand to ask him?
It is no concern of yours what action I have taken. I cannot allow you to march in here and assume that by simply raising your voice...
If General Muller has not yet been faced with the facts, then he should have been. Have you discussed the matter with him?
No.
Then why in God's name not? It's absolutely ridiculous just because one man decides to grow vegetables solely and exclusively for the use of the Wehrmacht headquarters up at Mount Durand, and just because that same individual acquires a bad name for himself in the process, which in my humble submission is entirely understandable, and just because the local population, understandably enough...
Doctor, would you care to save your arguments for the Herr General?
But you don't expect me to talk to him, surely?
You're the one complaining.
You made it perfectly clear in your letter.
If what you have to say comes from you as the controlling committee's representative on public health matters.
No.
There is nothing further to be said. Good afternoon.
I told Olive this was a trap.
I beg your pardon?
My wife.
I don't understand what you mean by trap.
You've got yourself in a mess, haven't you? That order should have been issued, if it should have been issued at all, by Major Friedel.
There is no trap. Either you are prepared to accept the responsibility for public health on the island, or you are not. If not, please allow me to continue with my work.
Can I use your telephone?
Yes, he phoned me from Richter's office about half an hour ago. Told me to tell you that he'd be late home.
Richter?
Yes.
Does that mean
he came to see me this afternoon about this water business.
Sit.
Thank you very much. Well, I told him deliberately that the committee was powerless, that we simply have not got the experience to put forward a convincing argument. So, he charged off...
Like an enraged bull elephant?
Something like that, yes.
And went straight to Richter?
Well... presumably, but that wasn't the impression he gave me. I was simply told he had more patients to see.
Which he has. There's a great list of them piling up.
Oh, never mind. Still, he's the man we all want.
So he is going to join?
Well, I'm not quite sure. I mean, all he did, he shouted something about going to Mount Durand to see General Muller because, as he put it, there wasn't another competent person available to do so. So I suppose yes. Yes. He has rejoined us.
Good.
All right, well, let's overlook for a moment the simple question of convenience. Let's worry about cooking and drinking and washing. After all, people can and do survive the most dreadful privations. And if a few aging islanders succumb to the ordeal of having to trudge half a mile or so with a bowl full of water, does it really matter? If the effort kills them, there'll be fewer mouths to feed.
Emotive arguments, Dr. Martell, do not influence me.
No, I didn't expect they would, General. However, I do think you should have given just a moment's consideration.
You are something of a Daniel, Doctor. It's not surprising that you find yourself in trouble with the authorities from time to time.
I do not seek trouble, General.
But is this, then, a mood of reconciliation? Please go on, if you have more to say.
I do seriously wonder, General, if you have given any thought at all to the simple, everyday consequences of this order of yours.
You have been outlining them for some time, have you not?
Some of them, certainly, yes, but there is one that nobody at all seems to have mentioned yet. The most important one, the one that concerns me most of all.
I'm sure we are all anxious to hear it.
Well, when you disconnected the water supply, General, you automatically cut off the supply to every lavatory cistern in the parish. Now, that seems to me to be an act of the gravest irresponsibility. And to expect old men and women and children to go out and dig holes in their gardens like animals at any time of the day or night is quite inhuman. Unless, of course, you're expecting them to leave their deposits of sewage mounting up, exposed in unflushed closets. Or are you perhaps suggesting the use of sanitary buckets? If so, are you going to provide them, General? If not, where are they coming from? Have you got a supply on order? Have you got a supply on hand? And when they get there, who's going to clean them? And how are they going to be cleaned, General, when there is no water? I do think you should have given just a moment's consideration to the health hazards involved, particularly in relation to the elderly and the infirm.
And may I suggest to you, Dr. Martell, that you put it to these elderly and infirm people that they do whatever the elderly and infirm used to do before the water closet was invented.
And may I suggest to you, General, that if you wish to return to the days of plague and disease that were common in those times, you have now taken the first considerable step in the right direction.
It might be possible to restore the water at certain hours of the day.
Limited and occasional supplies are not enough.
Very well. Withdraw the order forthwith.
Herr General.
Thank you, General.
Olive! We're in here, Philip.
I thought I'd wait and hear the result.
You make me sound like a prize fighter.
Do we win?
Yes. If you can call it a victory, I suppose so.
I rather think we've all won.
I could use a drink. Have we got anything mildly alcoholic in the cupboard?
Yes.
Welcome back, Philip.